Hey, welcome to the 40 Finance channel. Today we're talking about stock splits. I got a handful of names where the split conversation is starting to build momentum. Obviously, it's been a great year in the market, so prices for individual stocks in a lot of cases have went up. And if you're new to stock splits, the number one reason that companies do them is really just to make the price more marketable, if you will, from a stock perspective. If you have a stock that's $1,200 a share, for example, there's some argument that you limit the amount of investors who can buy that stock. And then on the flip side, if you have options traders who need 100 shares of stock really to make any progress on their options, then a $1,200 stock and requiring 100 shares on the options market, that gets pretty expensive quickly. So when you hear about stock splits, the inherent value of a company does not change. Really, all you're doing is changing the denominator, so to speak. So if a company was worth $1 million and they had 100 shares of stock, they do a stock split, and now they have 300 shares of stock. Company's still worth $1 million. You're just dividing it by more shares, and that brings the price on the market down. So at the end of the day, it's really just a vanity metric when you split stocks, but there is sort of a marketing angle slash trading angle to stock splits. And, who doesn't like getting more shares for doing nothing if you're holding a stock? Real quick before we jump in, you'll be seeing a lot of screens of Seeking Alpha on today's video. If you're interested in learning more about this awesome stock research platform and saving a ton of money, then please check out my affiliate link in the description, potentially support my channel. Okay, before I share the stocks that I think are on the verge of splitting, I wanted to share what I think is a super interesting tweet here. This is from this Heisenberg, Mr. Derivatives. If they never split their stock, these are the prices they would be trading at today. This is on December 11th, 2024. Microsoft, one share of Microsoft would be $129,000, Nvidia $66,000, Amazon $55,000, Apple $55,000, Google about $8,000, Tesla $6,000, and Meta, who we'll talk about later, the only one to never split out of this bunch, and then parentheses for now. So you can see this I think illustrates, where stock splits come into play. Obviously, if Nvidia cost $66,000, the number of people who could afford to invest in a single share would be quite limited. And then if you even started to talk about options and needing 100 shares to get anything done, in that scenario, you'd essentially need to be a multi-millionaire to even make that trade. Okay, first stock on the board, MicroStrategy is not one that I traditionally talk about. They're in the news a lot because the CEO is buying a ton of Bitcoin, basically on the company's books. And Bitcoin has had a substantial run, so MicroStrategy has had a substantial run. But MicroStrategy, in this case, really inspired this video because on X/Twitter, there's a lot of people talking about, would MicroStrategy have two splits in 1 year? And then a whole rabbit hole about that discussion. So I looked it up. They're at $400 today. And on Seeking Alpha, if you go to the charting screen, they list out all the historical splits. And you see right here, August 8th, 2024, they had a 10-to-1 split. So easy to do the quick math there. MicroStrategy would be, $4,000 a share today on a company whose, primary selling point is that they own Bitcoin. Makes sense that they would have done a split. Now, if we go back to the stock chart, since I'm not super familiar with this one, August 30th, it was trading at $132 a share. So somewhere in there, it was about $1,300 prior to the last 10-to-1 split. Which reminds me, speaking of this chart, if you're new to stock splits, almost every single imaginable stock chart on the planet is split adjusted. So even if you went back 5, 10 years, whatever, on MicroStrategy, and you looked at these prices down here, they have factored in all the stock splits along the way. It's really the only way that you can determine return and most of the valuable metrics in order to see how the price would change on a chart without split adjusted. You'd have to find one that did non-split adjusted. I don't think that there's much of a market for that because, you know, that stock would look like it had a horrible crash when in actuality it just split. So in order to get the non-split adjusted price, you'd either have to do some pretty significant math or you'd have to find a website, or in my case, I found that tweet where somebody else has done the research for you. All right, next stock on the list is Costco. You can see Costco trading very, very close to $1,000. If we look at their split history, they last split in the year 2000, and that was a 2-to-1 split. I did do the research. The last time it split back in 2000, it was approximately $100. So the share price went down to 50 on the 2-for-1. And if I were to just gauge the market on a Costco split, you know, I'd certainly argue if I was a shareholder that it's definitely time. If you look at this 5-year chart and you go back to 2020, you know, you're at $300, you've 3x that. The only thing that is odd is the fact that they've never done it except way back in 2000. So they went 20 years without one, 25 years basically. What changes with today? We'll just have to wait and see if they announce one in the near future. All right, next on the board is Tesla, trading today around $425. Their last split was 2022. And I went back and did the research, and the price was about $891 when Tesla last split, 3-to-1. So it went from $890, you know, to roughly $300 the last time they went through this. And since that time, if we go to 2022, there hasn't been a ton of change. So that was back in August, you know, so somewhere in this range. And since that time, I mean, it hasn't gone up exponentially. In fact, it's only really went up about 25% on some quick math. So will Tesla split their stock in the near future? My best guess is it would need to make another little bit of a run before they would consider it. All right, next up is Microsoft, trading at $453. And what's very interesting about Microsoft, a lot like Costco, their last split was 2003. Okay, so they did a 2-to-1 back in 03. The price at the time was $48.30, so it split down to 24. And if we go back to the chart here, you know, over the past 5 years, they've had an extraordinary run. What is the number, though, that they would be thinking? What is their comfort zone? I could definitely see between 3 to 5 on the split, but there really hasn't been an indication, and certainly previous history doesn't imply. Unlike Tesla, who's had recent splits, you don't see that with Microsoft. Tough to say what they think is the marketing line or the consensus line where a split will drive more interest for the stock. All right, next up we got Apple coming in at $248. Their last split was August of 2020. The price at that time was $385. You see where we are today, $248. And if we do, let's do a 5-year chart. So since that time, which would have been give or take here, you know, you're up 2x. Is 2x enough to warrant a split? And I think if you take into account the last split price was around $385, we are well below that. And my best guess is it needs to run a little bit before they'd start talking about another split. Okay, now when you talk about sparse split history, you got Meta, who's had no splits, period. And now you got a stock price at $633. This is a stock, you know, when you go back in the 5-year and somewhere around the end of 2022, this stock was $100, okay? and now it's 6x that at 632. There's definitely, in my opinion, some rationale for splitting here. Would it be 5-to-1? Would it be 10-to-1? I mean, they could pull it off either way. The key for Meta right now, though, is the outlook. You know, they're so tied to advertising. What do they see the outlook being for next year? I think timing's going to play a big part of it. When you do a stock split like this, you're typically supremely confident that your price is going up exponentially from here, because if you did a 10-to-1 split here, you bring in the price to 63. If you don't anticipate good numbers, then that can quickly fall down, right? And you start to get in this weird land of a sub $50 stock, which really doesn't represent, I think, Meta's value from an eyeball standpoint. You know, it's all vanity metrics at the end of the day. But I'll be very interested if you see Meta stock talk about a stock split next year. And the same goes for all these companies, but particularly Meta. I think you can feel good that the outlook is very positive, at least for the next 2-ish years. All right, guys, so those are 5 or 6 stocks there where I see a lot of conversation online about potential stock split and people just kind of kicking up the topic a little bit. Some I think are stronger than others in terms of the use case for it. But either way, let me know which ones you think will split in the comments. And if there's something that I missed, if there's one you think I missed, make sure you include that too. Don't forget to check out that special offer for Seeking Alpha Premium in the description, potentially support my channel. Hope everybody's doing well. We'll see you on the next video.